My name is Moran Haviv. I'm leading strategic innovation in the R&D center of Microsoft here in Israel. Definitely sustainability and climate tech is one of the areas that we are working on. And Microsoft is very committed to sustainability. We have a huge and ambitious goals to become carbon negative, water positive, and zero waste by 2030, and to assist our customers and empower them to do the same. Does anyone here is actually read The Economist magazine? One. Anyone else? Yes. Okay. So I don't know if you remember, but in May 2017, The Economist announced that data is the new oil. Yes, data is definitely disrupting industries and initiating new ones. It's also going to do a lot in climate as well. Data is the base for digital platforms that's going to assist organizations to make this change and transformation to a more sustainable future. It's based on data. We are going to hear from Orly about measurement, about planning, about recommendation on how to do this journey. But if speaking about oil, so data is also compute. And compute requires a lot of energy. In 2030, more than 10% of the electricity in the world is actually going to be devoted to digital services. And we need a more efficient infrastructure to support all of that, so we can make sure that we are carbon negative and we are using planet resources very useful. So we are going to talk about those two aspects here in this panel. I'm very, very, very pleased. To have here with me Orly Glick. Orly is the co-founder and CEO of ESGgo, the ESG operating system. Before founding ESG, she was a partner at Vintage and had 2 careers at McKinsey in Europe. Orly worked in Merrill Lynch and as asset management and private banking, and she is a guest speaker at Tel Aviv University. And I think she's very passionate about diversity and inclusion, and which explains why she knows so many languages and lived in so many countries. So Orly, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
We're also going to have Tobias Jahn. Hi, Tobias. Tobias is a partner in Hitachi the venture capital arm of Japanese conglomerate Hitachi. He is investing in deep tech and B2B software startups for over 15 years. You look 24, I have to say. In 3M, BMW Ventures, and now with Hitachi. And thank you very much, Tobias, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening.
And Dr. Eyal Cohen. Hi, Eyal. Thank you for joining. Dr. Eyal Cohen is the CEO and co-founder of CogniFiber, a leading company in the emerging ecosystem of photonic computing. Yes, you heard right, photonic computing. Eyal is graduate of both Technion and Weizmann Institute. He will explain us in a minute what does it mean photonic computing. And he's combining hardware engineering, neuroscience, and machine learning as an academic research and industry experience in companies like Mellanox, Oren Semiconductors, and more. He is the co-investor of fiber computing technologies. So thank you very much, Eyal, for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be in this high-quality team, expecting a very interesting debate. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And, please, this is a discussion. We are very happy. So we prepared a few things that we're going to speak, but we're also going to be very spontaneous. So stay tuned. I hope that we are going to get a really interesting stuff going on here. So, yeah, data centers today spend more than $60 billion on energy. 40% of the spend is about hardware, communication, cooling. It's about 2% of the world's energy. As I said before, it's expected to raise to 10% by 2030. Digital transformation has a major impact on our ability to reach carbon negative. What is the role of efficient infrastructure in a low-carbon economy?
Thanks. So, just being back from Silicon Valley last week, meeting all the top AI accelerator, both in large companies, giants, but also startups, all saying the same thing. 5 years ago, the limiting factor of AI, of artificial intelligence, was data. There was not enough data to train system. Now it's not. It's actually the compute. Why? Because in AI, we have models, the models which we need to train in order to help all the startups, all the business world, all the ecosystem to do what they need to do. But today's models are getting larger and larger, like twice every 3.5 months. So it's not sustainable. I mean, we need larger and larger systems, up to tens of megawatts. We need to really address this trend. And in CogniFiber, we see the solution in photonic computing that is computing with light. The same light that transmits data in fibers.
Okay. Can it really make a meaningful difference in those numbers? Moving to such infrastructure?
Yes, it's a very disruptive technology. What we expect in a few years, it will replace a system, large system that consume tens of megawatts with smaller system that consume just kilowatts. So it's more than 1,000 times X in energy.
Wow. So thank you very much. Tobias, can you share the reasoning for Hitachi Ventures to invent in PLANETech?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So last year at COP26, Hitachi actually announced their strategy to become a climate change innovator. And what that means is Hitachi develops technologies to help others to accelerate their decarbonization journey. And simultaneously, Hitachi also kind of announced their kind of internal carbon goals and becoming net zero in supply chain and product in use. And for a conglomerate like Hitachi, it's quite a challenge because kind of Hitachi is a conglomerate. It's a production company. They have 450,000 employees, 600 companies from data centers to solar power. It's big. And so we as Hitachi Ventures, we were kind of thinking about kind of how can we support with kind of our network, our intelligence in the venture world to help Hitachis on that journey. One, their own decarbonization journey, and then also kind of to find the right technologies, find startups that can kind of augment the capabilities of Hitachi. And at the end, what we are doing is we look for companies that we can support with our venture money. So we're just a kind of a venture investor, but also to find the right companies to collaborate. So at the end, ultimately, we accelerate the joint business development and partnerships with our venture investments.
Okay, very cool. Everyone, Tobias is going to be here later. So this is an invitation to contact him.
Anytime.
Orly, you have been an investor for many, many years. And what was the trigger to switch sides and found ESGgo?
Wow, very good question. So in a career change, you have many reasons to make a career change, but I think that people that know me, and my team is here, they know me really well. What gets me excited are two things. One is doing good and doing the right thing, and the other is doing good business and impactful business. And so I think that marrying these two and the intersection of doing good for the environment, doing good for society, together with having a real business impact, that's what got me really excited. And when I saw that ESG is becoming obliged by regulation, and companies are saying that this is a really, really big pain point to collect all the data, to understand what ESG is, to report the data, to maximize the data and optimize the ESG posture, then I understood that we can do a really big impact on the data side, on the software side, on the business side, but then we actually have an influence on tens of thousands of organizations, on millions and millions of people to do good for the environment and for society. So it's kind of a win-win for both. So that was exciting for me.
It sounds very exciting. And it is, look at everyone here. And on top of it, I think definitely the business moment that we all waited for arrived, right? It's the right timing from business perspective.
Yes.
Eyal, when did the environmental element evolve to be a meaningful factor in the company offering?
So about 8 years ago, when we started the research, this was a collaboration between Bar-Ilan University and the Hebrew University. I did actually my postdoc. I went to my professor, Zev Zalewski. I told him, I want to do deep learning in light. That's what I want to do. I came from neuroscience. I wanted to build a photonic brain. So, of course, it was obvious it will be faster, more efficient, etc. But just in the past year, I get these signals from the world saying, look, it's not just about being faster. It's actually, there is a problem out there in data centers. There's not enough power in the grid in some places like Germany, Singapore, also in the United States. They are saying to data centers, you cannot take more. You can take 100 megawatt. You can have 150 megawatt or 50 megawatt. That's it. So if you're a data center, hyperscaler, you are limited. And we don't want our world to be governed energetically just by data center. We want to free the world from this burden, as Orly said, that's both good doing and good business together. So a really matched solution.
I'll maybe add for that in Microsoft, we have our goal to be in 2025, all the data centers to run actually on green energy. But it's, and now we have one in New Zealand that it's 100% running on green energy, on clean energy. But it's really a huge challenge, especially the digital companies, and we want more digital companies. We want the digital transformation. It's very good to business. It's very good to companies. It's disrupt industries, but it required a lot of electricity and energy. And I think this is, working together is a great. We need to work together for a better future.
Yeah, Moran, I want to point out another thing. It's not just data center. In the future, there's going to be a huge compute on the edge. We'll have billions of chips, let's say on drones, in agriculture, everywhere. So even if the chips are only 1 watt each or several watt each, we'll have gigawatts just spread across. It's huge. And again, we have to bring those systems with very low power to the edge as well.
And make sure, that we are very efficient in using the planet resources. Thank you very much. So Tobias, we heard here a lot of buzzwords about, infrastructure and software. In order to accelerate the low carbon economy, what are the domains that you're actually looking for in investment, and also what Hitachi is looking for in actually building it itself?
Very good question. So let me answer or making two examples, I would say, in infrastructure investments and then coming to our investments. There's a lot, so it's a selection, I would say. The first example, Hitachi is developing, they call it a net zero platform. And a net zero platform helping companies to transition to electric mobility on the fleet and kind of commercial level. So buses for cities and light commercial trucks, large fleet delivery, and so on. And the issue is, it's easy to buy a car, but when you buy a large fleet of EVs or lots of batteries on wheels, you need lots of energy, and that's a massive infrastructure you need to do. But when you have all this capacity, you want to leverage it. So you might want to trade energy. You need backup power. You have a kind of a grid storage. You want to have a power purchase agreement for green energy. You need to finance it. You need driver education. You need a different fleet management to have it. And so it's very complex. So what Hitachi is doing is kind of combining a one-stop solution to actually help and making the transition easy, including taking the residual risk of the corporate buyer in terms of battery degradation and so on. So you need a lot of data again to really understand what is actually the risk I'm getting into, and so it's a platform that is being built up. And we as Hitachi Ventures, we actually did an investment in kind of fueling the ecosystem. It's called Beyond. It's a light commercial electric truck with the same vision. And kind of on Hitachi won't be on the vehicle side, but they need to kind of fuel the ecosystem. So that is kind of an example how we also collaborate and kind of try to connect different capabilities with our kind of expertise in finding tech. And maybe another one that is a little bit further ahead, it's carbon capture. I'm quite passionate about it. We believe ultimately we need to repair our our environment and get CO2 out of the air. And it will ultimately a big market, but the technology is not there yet. So you kind of have to fuel it. And there are great initiatives, and also kind of Biden's Inflation Act kind of helps a lot, subsidizing that. But kind of going forward, and that's not a kind of a decision that is taken yet, but it can be well imagined that Hitachi is operating plants, having technology to make these kind of large facilities more efficient, to actually get down to a cost per carbon ton that is commercially viable, which is about $100 expected. So this is an initiative which is a nascent industry. We know that it will be big. We know that you need corporate commitments to take it off the ground, and this is where we are currently kind of seeing a lot of value in our activities, really identifying and supporting the companies that kind of can drive and can develop these technologies. We will scale maybe in 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead.
Fascinating. Orly, what is the most surprising in the environment reporting frameworks?
What was surprising for us in the beginning is we call it data spaghetti. So we found out that companies have to report their ESG. So in Europe, it's mandatory by regulation. In the US, it's coming very soon. But then that data spaghetti there's many different frameworks for reporting. And each different framework is looking at data points from a different perspective. And then there's the rating agencies that are rating the companies based on their ESG reports. And these rating agencies, the asset managers that are buying the stocks, are looking at the ratings of ESG. And it's more and more becoming a part of the asset management and stocks industry. And they're looking at it from a different angle as well. And each and every rating agency have their own methodology and their own weights. And so corporates or enterprises or companies or any public company or even pre-IPO company, when they're about to come out with their ESG report, and even throughout the year when they prepare their strategic plan, and even if in any tactical plan, thinking about ESG is becoming a big mess because you don't really know how to report. What are the data points that are comparable to each and every one of the frameworks versus the rating agencies? So we were surprised by the complexity of the data. So that was kind of the biggest problem that we saw.
Wow. It sounds, and from what I know, at least from Cloud for Sustainability in Microsoft, it's really a huge problem. It's really one of the problems that most of our clients, including us, is actually facing. So Eyal, CogniFiber was founded in 2018 and is expected to go general, be available in 2026. It's exceeding the time of a VC fund lifespan. And what tips can you give founders that consider to initiate such a journey?
Yeah, this reminds me, I was sitting with Muli Eden, who was the VP Global of Intel, Vice President. He told me, what you're doing is very interesting, but you need 10 years and $100 million. So if I would start with that, of course, it's very hard for a startup to say, okay, I need 10 years and $100 million. You know, let's find the VC who puts that. So first you have to take in account, of course, it's a very long way. And then you have to really plan what are the, incremental milestones where you can slowly remove the risk of the project and show the investors the promise is not just an idea, but something that in actuality. So, for example, for the seed, we showed we can actually make a photonic neuron, a single unit that can actually be done when we project light into the system. And then for the last round, we need to have a full system, 4-layer of neural network. Again, going from very simple to slightly, and then of course we have several steps ahead. I hope it's not 10 years and $100 million. What we hope is around 3-4 more years and about $30-40 million. Still a lot. Yeah, we need. But I can say that with everybody I talk to, whether it's startups or whether it's, giant techs like Microsoft, Google, etc., everyone says, if this works, that's a game changer. And especially for PLANETech, for the environment.
And do you have any tips for investors that you meet?
Yes, I think so. First, you need to be patient. We are inventing new technology. It's not software. It's not hardware. We don't know exactly what it's going to do. We build it step by step. And then we think it will work this way, but actually it works that way. So there's lots of pivoting and there are a lot of patience. And the second advice, I would say, split the risk. I mean, if I could start, I would start with at least 5 investors, maybe even more. Everybody puts 1 million, not 10. And then the risk is shared. Makes sense. Everybody shares. So as more and more, risk takers, the lower the risk for each one of them. Cheers.
Thank you. So Tobias, investment in software and infrastructure, as we heard, usually requires different financial approaches. And you're doing both, right? So can you give us tips about how you're looking, what's the financial vehicles that you're looking into in each one?
Yeah, sure. So kind of when we take kind of the infrastructure type high capex investments, we look for deep tech, science-based, deep kind of IP-rich, something we can protect. We typically project also kind of far in the future, build our conviction of the market, kind of see what outcome we envision the company should do, and kind of try to assess, does this company have this long-term competitive mode? And then obviously kind of trying to find also efficient way to finance that company and showing successes in between, because it doesn't always have to be equity. You can currently obviously you have a lot of subsidies. You can do project finance once you have really something working. There are grants. There are JVs. So there are different constructs that you can look at. And then it starts to make a lot of sense. And then on the software side, obviously it takes less capital, but competition is typically high. You have to see that you're sticky. And so when we look at software, we also want to have kind of things that are starting to be embedded. So we are only looking at B2B software, so nothing B2C. So if it's really embedded in the corporate OS, so if you're an ERP system, you're typically not kind of replaced. So and something where kind of with data and experience from the market, you're kind of trying to advance and differentiate. So this is on the software side kind of more important, because then kind of it's a fierce market and you need to have very good executors.
So Orly, we will now talk to you as an investor, but also as a founder. What tips can you give investors that wish to have ClimATech into their portfolio? Is it different?
Wow, this is a great question. I think that first investors should first understand in what they're investing. And this is why there was a shift. I mean, you can see cycles, and we just spoke about it before the panel. If 15 years ago, there was not a lot of innovation, and then cyber started, and there were funds that are experts on cyber. They got all the good deals, and then there was automotive funds, and they got most of the automotive deals. So the beginning of the cycle, the beginning of a new cycle is usually with funds that are experts on the topic, but then it becomes more exposed to the whole ecosystem. So then even other funds that are not experts on climate will probably see the success that is happening and will want to join the game. So I actually see it happening now. A lot of funds that are going into ClimATech, and a lot of funds that are not experts on ClimATech and want to go in. So I think that expertise and understanding the topics is so the subject matter expertise is really important. Understanding what are the drivers in the market, how does that work, who is the user, who's the buyer, and not come very pompous and say, oh yeah, you know what, this is climate tech. What do you do? So subject matter expertise is the first thing. I think that's mainly it.
So we were speaking a lot about the investment, but regulation, we all know, is also part of what is going to, have a lot of effect on our investments or on our startups. So Eyal, what do you recommend for, if we have regulators over here, and I hope we have, or the ones that can actually speak to, what do you recommend them to look at in terms of infrastructure?
Well, I'm a bit biased because for me, for most companies, regulation is a burden, as Orly said. For me, it's a motivator. Why? If there will be regulation, then companies will need to abide by the regulation and will look for ways to reduce carbon footprint, inevitably investing in technologies like ours. But I think Orly said that the regulation makes it very complex. At least it sounded very complex. And I think we don't need to lose the motivation to help the planet by making things too complex and too mushy, the spaghetti. I think that simplicity, somehow to find that, all regulators find a very basic common denominators that everybody's understand and it's clear to everybody what should be done. That would be probably an advice from me.
Interesting. So we are almost done. And I do want to have their founders, investors, regulators here with us. What do you invite them to do tomorrow morning in relate to climate and digital, obviously, or even when to contact you? So, do you want maybe to start, Tobias?
It's two questions. Very first, when to contact me. Obviously, we're an investor. As I said, we want to do the collaboration. So everything late seed to Series B, where we can collaborate. It would be highly interested. We have quite a broad mandate: decarbonization, resource efficiency, nature preservation, increasing living quality. So it's quite a mandate. That's why I'm here and always enjoy the good discussions here. In terms of what do I want to give to the audience or ask the audience, I suppose everybody read this fantastic announcement from Patagonia, or actually who read the pledge of actually making Earth the only shareholder. It's quite if not, everybody should read that. So the first thing what my wife texted me after she read it, when you can, you have to buy Patagonia. I was like, oh hell. So what I wanted to say, I think we have a lot of power. It's about when I was thinking, what kind of software, what do we need to accelerate? What are the trends? And it's so fundamental actually, because everything I believe what we do in terms of development of services, of products, will need to become environmentally aware. And it will be embedded in everything we do, design and development, clean energy, and so on. And even biodiversity, water, it's very complex. So if everyone is thinking about what is the company doing where I'm buying my product, is it greenwashing or are they doing something real? I think we will develop a lot of power, because that is actually what if you fuel the money where people doing good to the environment, then there's an incentive for everybody to go in that direction. And I think that takes a little bit of extra work, but once you sort it out, I think that's very, very powerful.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Orly.
So I think that we spoke about the investor side, we spoke about the startups, we spoke about regulators, but I think I would add one more aspect. And actually to your question, what do I want to say to the audience? You are all in the right place at the right time. And even if it's a little early, it seems a little early, it's the right time. And why? Regulators understand that. And so regulation is starting. customers, whatever it is, if it's enterprise customers, smaller enterprise, they understand because of regulation, but also because of the customers. We didn't speak about that stakeholder. So there's regulators, there's the corporates, there's startups, but everything is moved by the consumer. Not for nothing, the investors understand that. Investors are coming from driving companies, the stock price of the company, the revenue. Everything is stemming from the consumer, and obviously the employees too. Now, that there's a shift in Gen Zs, Gen Alpha. I see them at my home. All they're talking about is the planet, doing good, purpose, and diversity. Okay, that's why we're in the ESG. But it's coming from the consumer. And there's so many studies, a McKinsey study and a PwC study and an EY study and each study has a different number, some 70%, some 80, some 90. So between 70 and 90% of consumers are attesting that they will switch brands to a brand that cares more about the environment and society. And the consumer and the employees are driving everything. And it's happening now. Now it might take a little bit more time for it to trickle up, but eventually that's the driver of everything. So there's a shift in culture of the consumer. And so you're all in the right place and the right time. Maybe a tiny bit early, but it's happening.
Yeah.
I would call everybody, companies, customers, say this is a group effort. This is not something that just one company needs to run. I mean, we need to have a commitment of the ecosystem of, for in my case, hardware manufacturers and data centers operators saying we cannot let this trend go on. We need to break the vicious cycle. I mean, so many companies are based on AI, but at the same time, usage of AI is detrimental now. So we need to break this connection. We need to turn it over. And this is, again, multi-company effort. We need to hold hands together and do it.
Amazing. So everyone, thank you so much. Thank you, Tobias. Thank you, Orly. Sorry. Thank you, Eyal. It was a pleasure to speak to you. I hope everyone, for you, it was very, very interesting. I'll say one thing from me. So I'm around 20-something years actually working in digital in the digital industry. And, they say that software eats the world, and then platform eats the world, and data eats the world. But now we need to make sure that we're not eating the world and we're actually building it. And data and digital and infrastructure is definitely a way to do it. So I'm really inviting you all to join this journey. And also contact us in Microsoft. We have a great team here, and we'll be very happy to speak with you in various topics on this. Thank you very much for listening.